call to order this meeting of the Hermosa Beach Public Works Commission on March 18th, 2026. It's 6:03. Public Works Management Analyst Michael Delamico, could you please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Engineer Nguyen, as our facilitator, could you start us off with the roll call, please?
Yes, taking roll call. Commissioner Dunbarton,
Here.
Commissioner Britton,
Here.
Commissioner Hayes,
Here.
Vice Chair Lakeville,
Here.
and Chairperson Gretton.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, we'll move on to approval of the agenda. If no one has any proposed modifications, I'll accept a motion to approve.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Motion by
Second.
Dunbarton, second by Britton. Can we do a voice vote on this, or?
Yes. Commissioner Dunbarton,
Yes.
Commissioner Britton,
Yes.
Commissioner Hayes,
Yes.
Vice Chair Lakeville,
Aye.
and Chair Gretton.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, item number 5, announcements. These are of general citywide events. Anybody? Commissioner Britton?
Yes, I'd like to announce that on May 9th, the Hermosa Beach Quantum will be celebrating its 100th year in Hermosa Beach. So this is a big celebration. It's open to the public. You'll hear more about it, but we have been here doing service to the community for 100 years.
Okay. And also, getting back to the agenda, oh, I'm sorry. Does anybody else have any other announcements? Okay. Commissioner Hayes? No. Okay, we'll keep moving. We have nothing listed under the presentations, item 6. We will have our standing presentation on the CIP as part of item 7C. We are on item 7. We'll take them individually, A, B, C. So now we're at 7A. That's the director's update. Director San Clemente, it's yours now.
All right. Thank you, Chairperson Grathan. Good evening, Commissioners. We're going to momentarily just pull up some slides. I have a fair amount to share with you tonight, various projects.
For 7A?
This will be for 7A.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, these will be non-CIP updates
Got
that I wanted to cover for the evening.
Great.
Yep. Uh-oh. Thank you. Thank you. Awesome.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Engineer Nguyen. Okay, to start off with the updates tonight, the first thing that I'd like to announce is that we will be having a joint meeting with the Parks and Recreation Public Works Commission meeting on May 5. That time was actually the Parks and Rec regularly scheduled meeting, but we're going to merge that into a joint special meeting. And this is going to be a highlight of the CIP. And I think one thing that I'd like to go over is this year we have adjusted the schedule slightly, and the order of how the flow is going to be is part of the CIP development and budget preparation. And so in the past years, we've typically had the CIP study session in April with the budget study session in May and then adoption either in May or June. And so this year, we're actually going to be switching the order slightly with budget study session scheduled end of April, whereas that would normally be the place for the CIP study session. And that way, as we lead into the Joint Commission meeting on May 5, we will then have the CIP study session in late May. And the thought was by having an initial budget discussion, it helps frame the overall budget picture, as CIP is a major component of the overall budget. And so I think that will help frame those discussions, and we'll be able to get Joint Commission input as we work towards developing the overall budget for the upcoming fiscal year. Other updates, I want to let you know that our team is actively working on the 14th Street restroom. If you may recall, this was a prior CIP that we removed. It became a supplemental project. Our team has been doing a lot of work on the restroom. We're looking to open any week now, possibly by the end of the month. There's some additional landscaping work and some final touches that we're doing in the interior, but we've replaced the roof. We did a lot of brickwork out front. There's a lot of landscape work ongoing. We painted the bricks, did a lot of interior repairs and renovations. So I've been in there, it's looking really good. So we're going to be excited to getting that open in a couple weeks. And then I'm going to move into, I have a Caltrans update and various utility project updates that I'll go over. Caltrans, you may recall, I gave an update probably maybe over a year ago that there was a major resurfacing project planned on PCH. This has been in the works for years. I believe Caltrans advertised the project about a year or two ago. Bids came in very high. They ended up re-advertising the project. So we've been really tracking this for a very long time. This is a very large project. It goes through City of LA at the Santa Monica city limits, down PCH through 5 different cities to the southern end of Redondo, including Hermosa Beach. We've had already 2 preliminary coordination meetings with Caltrans and one with their contractor. They're looking for about 3 to 4 months duration in each city. They're going to be starting in City of LA, and they're going to work their way south. So the tentative start right now is potentially January of 2027. So seems like a long way away, but it's going to be here very soon, and that will be full resurfacing in the city. We are still working out traffic control and work schedules, but there is some potential for some night work activity that's still being discussed and negotiated with Caltrans and their contractor. But more to come as we get closer to that, but I want to give an update that it is finally happening. Cal Water has been doing a lot of work in the city. They're doing a major water main replacement on Aviation. The main line is complete now in Aviation, and they're working on all the connections. That work, along with some of the temporary resurfacing on Aviation, is scheduled to be wrapped up by early April, and then they're going to move into the other adjacent roadways, Owasso, Corona, 9th and 10th, and Prospect, with that work being wrapped up sometime in June. And so that's all moving along. Los Angeles County Sanitation Districts also has a major force main pipeline replacement that's been ongoing for several months. This is a multi-month project, had been planned that way. They're making good progress. There's still work going on Monterey and 2nd Street, and there's still additional work that needs to continue there, but we are looking to wrap up potentially as early as May, or potentially moving into June with final pavement restoration. The Los Angeles County Sanitation Districts has a second very large project coming. This one has also been in the works for a long time, and we've been working with them over a year on this. You may recall about a year and a half ago, there was emergency lining work that they had to do on Bayview Drive. We had the bypass pipe up on Monterey. That was only one section of the entire line that runs through the city. The map on the left shows the line that starts at the southern city limit, and it works its way all the way up to the Manhattan limit through the city. This is an over 100-year-old sewer line, carries a lot of outflow from the city, but they're going to do a cured-in-place liner for about 8,000 feet through the entire city, everything except that one section that was completed on Bayview about a year ago. The sanitation districts did come to the council meeting last Tuesday to provide a presentation. I have their slides here tonight that I want to walk through briefly to highlight some of the key points of this project. The project's going to be it's going to be Monday through Friday, 8 to 4. There are potential for some night work and weekend work. This is going to be a phased project. We're working closely with them on when they would have to do that night and weekend work for certain activities. They are going to have their own inspector on site through the sanitation district, and we will also have our inspector there as well, working in coordination with them to make sure notifications are going out and they're following agreed-upon traffic control. There will be some impacts throughout the city. There will be a bypass pipe, and I'll have a picture of that momentarily, of what that looks like. We've worked pretty hard with them to try to minimize parking impacts the best that we can during this, particularly by phasing it, but there will be some impacts throughout it. As this is going to be a long project, we did require that they stay out of the downtown from April 1 through September 30th. There is a section that has to run through Hermosa Avenue, I'll get to that in a minute, and we did preclude any activity during those months because we knew that they would have to go through there at some point, but the work will have to go through there. This picture is actually on Monterey from about a year and a half ago to kind of illustrate what the sewer bypass looks like. They have to eliminate any flow in that line to put the liner in, so they have to put a temporary pipe, and this is typically at grade. And you can see the pipe with the cones that runs down the middle of the street. This is what we should expect. At certain locations where we have to have intersections or high traffic crossover, they do trench through the street and do temporary plates over it. And so there will be several locations where they have temporary trenching so that we can maintain access at key locations. But this is what we have ahead of us. This is what the lining operation looks like. They typically do this from manhole to manhole. If they need to, they might need to trench a hole to access if there's a long segment of pipe, but they typically do it at the manholes in between segments. The first phase, we actually announced today that they're going to be starting on March 30th. And so this is at the more southern limits of the city, and this is the first phase on Valley Drive between 2nd and, I believe, 4th Street. This phase is going to take a couple weeks to complete, and I think we're doing what we can to minimize impacts on the Greenbelt. And this is just phase one of many. It does jump around a bit, and we did plan the different phasings with the contractor and the sanitation districts to avoid conflicts with other ongoing or planned utility or CIP projects throughout the city. Phase two is up at 18th to 25th Street in that location on Palm Drive, and the bypass is in yellow. So the sewer line is actually blue, and the bypass is in yellow on the adjacent street, just to show you the different colors that are out there. So while there is work being done on one road, they have to bypass on the other, so they have to impact two streets at one time. The third phase is kind of in the area of 22nd Street and Pier Avenue. So this is north of Pier Avenue. This is the one location closer to downtown that we did allow, even though we are having that construction moratorium in the downtown. We felt that it was out of the downtown core enough that we could allow this section to proceed during that busier time. And then phase four is further north from 25th to 30th Street, headed up Hermosa Avenue, with the plan of the bypass likely going through the median of that roadway. And then phase five works its way up further on Hermosa Avenue up to the city limits. In these last two phases, we did push out so that Greenwich Village underground construction, CIP, could make progress and we wouldn't have two work zones on top of each other. So a lot of work here has gone into with the team to negotiate when these are going to occur. Final phase, phase six, is right in the downtown. And so the challenge is that we have a bypass pipe on Manhattan Avenue. The main line is on Manhattan Avenue. We just paved Pier Avenue. We did not want to trench through Pier Avenue. So the only option is to run a bypass up Hermosa Avenue. And the one thing that I want to highlight is that we looked at a lot of different options, and this was the least impactful option. But one thing that they will need to do is they will have to trench through the intersection of Hermosa Avenue at Pier Avenue where we have the HB logo. Sanitation Districts has agreed to restore that in kind at the conclusion of construction. So we will have to dig it up to do the bypass temporary trenching, but they will restore it and put it back. And this work, we're able to push it off to towards the end of the year and outside of that really peak busy season downtown. We will continue to work with them on notifications as each phase comes out. The sanitation districts will be handing out a series of notifications. They typically do it 14 days, 7 days, and 24 hours in advance of work. There are a few homes where they actually are tied in to the sanitation district's line directly. This is more of a rare case, but there are a few homes that will be impacted, and they will be working with those properties because there will be temporary service disruptions, and they will have to set up temporary restrooms and wash stations for those homes. But the sanitation districts will be doing that outreach directly to the affected property owners. They're going to do small segments at a time in this phased manner, and there will be those temporary trenches that I mentioned. Here's the contact information. Their contractor is SanCon Technologies, but we also have direct contacts with the sanitation districts if there's any issues that do arise, and the city will be working alongside them as well. And they have also set up this dedicated webpage for the project. That concludes my updates on these items, and I'm happy to answer any questions with anything that I covered.
Anybody?
Just thinking, will this be added to the minutes, or is this available somewhere? It's good to be able to go back and refer to it. Since it wasn't in our agenda packet.
Yes, we upload all the presentations for commission and council after the meeting.
I'd like to ask a little bit about on the sewer project, and Joe, we touched on this one a little bit. Trying to get a feel for the extent of potential pavement impacts, and just to lead into it and show how much I do or don't understand this. Because they're doing liners, we don't expect a lot of trenching, and then there's some spaces where they can't go through a manhole, but so they have to at least cut open some amount of space. And I don't know if there's some areas where there is actual long trenching for several feet.
There will be locations they have to trench to put the bypass pipes in and get it under the intersection. So I definitely want to say there will be some trenching, but for the most part, they do a lot of the work from manhole to manhole. Where they do impact our pavement, they're going to be required to restore it per the city standard trench detail. We can't force them to repave the whole street, but we do have a standard trench detail that includes that restoration requirement.
So it'll mostly be a set of modest size repairs.
Yeah, I believe that, I don't know if it's maybe Saad can jump in. I think it might be a 4-foot trench approximately.
Yeah, the standard detail, the restoration detail for asphalt is about lane width. So if it's a 4-foot trench, it's going to be about 8 feet wide of restoration that they do outside of the actual trench.
Okay, thanks. So I'm just glad that this is not going to have a substantial impact on our plans, either cost-wise or schedule-wise, compared to what we would be doing if this were not happening.
And budget-wise, this is all being borne by LA County Sanitation?
No, that's correct. The city does not have to pay for any of the costs.
So kind of along similar lines, the project that's going down Monterey right now, is the patchwork that they've done on Monterey, is that final at this point?
That is not final.
Okay.
That's just the base pave that they have. They're going to do a final pave. I think it's going to be May.
Okay,
is
but
when
is
that's
the
scheduled.
width?
No, the width is not final.
Okay,
as well.
that was my question, because I thought, it was my understanding we were going from center line to curb,
Correct.
and it's not that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, right now, that's the plan, the center line to curb. We are actually exploring a potential option where we might do full pavement from curb to curb. We are negotiating with their contractor and actually talking to another contractor to see if we can get a cost that makes sense for us to pay the difference to do the full width from Second to Rondo. We just got to make sure that the costs come in line. Otherwise, we're going to defer it to a future paving, and we'll still at least get center line to curb. Right. But right now, we are exploring the potential to do all of it.
And then and this is the new project. How is that work being coordinated with the Green Street work? Because it's all of Southern Hermosa is a mess right now. There's so much going on. Like you think you're leaving the neighborhood one way and one project's in your way, you go the other way, the other project's in your way. So, I mean, it's you got to go 2 blocks. It's not that big of a deal, but now you're adding a third project.
Yeah, and that's, well, that's why we're phasing it. The new sanitation district project is going to be months. I think it's almost a year. That project's going to be ongoing, and so that's why we broke it up into pieces. We're actually working with a contractor in the sanitation districts on traffic control plans for each phase, and so we're actually not approving the whole project. We're approving the project one phase at a time.
But my understanding is you're starting on 2nd Street, which is
Correct.
the area that's impacted by both of the other projects right now.
Right. And we're working those traffic control plans out the best that we can. I think that we're still going to maintain two-way flow at those locations, but yes, there's going to be some impact.
So we can go back to the map, but the 2nd Street portion that's anticipated to start in March is mainly going to be with the bypass along the Greenbelt and not in the street itself. So there'll be impacts, and we do acknowledge that there's already impacts, but as you can see here, the bypass itself and the impacts are going to be pretty much at that 2nd and Valley location. A little further away, though it is in close proximity, a little further away from the Green Streets project.
Right, I'm just, 2nd Street is a major thoroughfare. That's one of the few that goes all the way through. And it's been difficult for residents over the last few months. And, it'd be nice. And I guess Green Streets is mostly out of 2nd Street at this point. They still have materials stored on 1st Street, which I'll ask that question when we get to it. But it would be nice if they're out before we start tearing something else up.
Yeah, I think I understand and definitely appreciate the concern. I think we're trying to do our best to juggle all the different needs. I think, the one thing to emphasize with this sewer project is it really does need to be done before we have another emergency situation like we had on Bayview. This is over 100 years old. This carries a lot of sewer flow out of the city. That's why we're trying to break it into manageable pieces, that we're looking at about a 2 or 3 week duration at this location. And then we're gonna move into a different area. But we are doing the best to juggle and manage the traffic impacts with a lot of different needs that are coming. But a comment heard.
I just want to highlight, it says main trunk, for those of us who are familiar with the sanitary sewer architecture in this town, Hermosa is responsible and owns most of the smaller sewers, but we do have this main trunk that's the county. And so I got to admit, since so much feeds into that and it's so substantial, in some sense, we should be really thrilled that this is happening in Hermosa Beach, although there is never a good time for impacts, as Commissioner Hayes is lamenting.
No, don't get me wrong, I'm excited that it's happening. It's just that like I said, from 2nd Street to Horonda, there's been so much going on. Every day it's a different street, and you think they're done on your street, and you try to get out, and no, you can get to the end of the street, and they turn you around, and then you try to go out a different way. It's been really bad the last couple of weeks, and this is just another hurdle that I'd like to have only 2 projects going on at once and not add a third. I mean, the Green Streets is close to going. I got a lot of issues with Green Streets, but it's close to being done in the area. They just can't seem to get their stuff out of the way. They've got material, lagging behind. Anyway, well, I'll wait till we get to Green Streets.
And just to be clear, the purpose of my comment was just for the general public, so they can appreciate how important this is, not at all to diminish your point.
And if I may say something too, I came that way yesterday, and going down Horonda, turning on to Monterey, and I think that they're doing a very good job as far as directing traffic through there, At least that's what I saw yesterday.
Most of the time they are,
Yeah.
but there are times where it's a little chaotic.
No,
And it's tough to say. When it was just the sewer project, that was better. But with that and Green Street's going on, like, you got different people telling you to do different things. And anyway, that's my 2 cents.
I was amazed, and yeah, right, and then the green streets on 6th Street, and there's a lot of work being done down there, so.
Are we done with that then? So, Commissioner Britton?
Yeah, I think what I hear, and I ran into the same problem, they're not coordinating with each other. You know, you get a sign saying go this way, and then you hit another detour this way, and no one is out there with signs directing you. So somehow the two groups are not talking to each other, and it gets very confusing and misdirecting.
Yeah, and the problem is none of this work is being done by Public Works.
Yeah.
You know, so they like, and even if it, you know, so you've got multiple entities, you know, so you got Torrance is handling Green Street, you've got the sanitation handling what they're handling, you know, so it's different entities and they're not talking to each other and not really responsible to each other. So
Isn't that what I just said?
it is, but it's the different it's the fact that it's different entities makes it even worse.
All right. So one thing I'll add to that is that the city issues permits to these entities. Our inspectors do regularly go out on a daily basis, inspect what's going on, ensure that they're following approved traffic control. There are times that they're not. We get calls when they're not, and we go out and we intervene and have the contractor correct the issue. I would say if anyone is experiencing issues, contact the Public Works Department, and we will gladly go out and enforce or determine whether or not we need to have them make adjustments if there's conflicting work zones or any issues. But we are going out there on a daily basis and monitoring them. It is challenging because these are lengthy projects, especially with the sanitation districts, but our team is doing the best we can to try to coordinate it. But please do contact us, and that's anyone in the public, if you're experiencing a specific issue, and we'll try to tackle it.
Thanks for making that clear also. Okay, I'm going to have a quick go back on the joint meeting. My understanding is this is part of taking a little better look at how we go through the entire budget cycle process. And the one thing that stands out is we're having this, by having this joint meeting, we're having that earlier, and then the CIP study session will be a little bit later. And one thing that's been frustrating for some of us has been having the study session after the commission meeting. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that that's a good thing about this new approach. And then as far as the meeting goes, I'll look forward to working jointly with staff and the chair of the Parks and Rec to figure out how we're actually going to run the meeting. We'll all get to hear everything at the same time. We'll be able to talk about parks-related subset of the CIP when we're all there together. And we'll then want to think about how we manage the meeting for the part of the meeting that is not within the Parks and Recreation Commission jurisdiction. Okay, I think we're done then with 7A. That brings us to 7B, activity reports. Any comments or questions on the activity reports?
I just had a quick one. Like, where does the 14th Street bathroom show up on? It's a non-CIP, but I was trying to figure out where all the work being done there shows up.
It's not directly on here. There's a lot of activities that the Public Works Department as a whole does, especially our operations maintenance team. Those activities are not all shown in these reports. I think that's why I try to integrate it into my updates when there is something major, but I will just say there's a lot of activities that half of our team does. on a daily basis and through the year that we generally don't report at this meeting, which is generally more focused on the CIP.
Okay.
I have one comment on the activity reports. As you know, I like to have this one metric where I look at the percent of time that is spent by staff on the CIP to get a feel for if you guys are actually getting a chance to work on it. And it looks like in the last 3 months, the percentage has gone up. The percentage from December to February was 43%. For the first 5 months of the year, by my calculation, it was about 37%. I'm glad to see you're getting a chance to work on it. I think it shows as you are completing projects. I also look regularly at the council financial CIP report to get just another sort of feel for how things are going. We are on track to expend a lot of our budget this year, and so none of these metrics are perfect, but I think taken together and with what we see happening, it all seems to agree that progress is being made. And that's all I got on that. So I think now we're ready to move on to item 7C, which is the CIP status report. We'll do our typical process. We'll have city engineer Saad Malam present as many projects as he wants to, and then after we go through that with comments and questions, we can go around and see if any commissioners want to bring up any CIP projects that have not been covered. So take it away, Saad.
Good evening, Chairperson Grayson, Commissioners. I'll give a quick overview for the current CIP status update. I'd like to start with a couple of projects that are going to be starting soon. CIP 626, which is the CDBG sidewalk improvements project, which tends to be a biannual project every other year or so, is slated to start at in April 2026, in just a couple of weeks. We have a contractor selected, the contract is being routed, and a pre-construction meeting is set for next week. The major area for the CDBG improvements are going to be along Monterey Avenue from 2nd Street going all the way up to 10th. So this is going to be a little bit more of an impact near that area in the southern portion of the city. These improvements are limited to curb ramps and sidewalks. If you remember from last year, I think the CDBG project last year, which was about the same scale of improvements, was completed in about 3 weeks. The totality of it. So the curb ramp improvements and the downtimes at each curb ramps was relatively minimal. That's what we're looking to do for this project as well. But we're looking for that to get started in April. Moving on, we have a number of projects that are near completion. CIP 630, which is the community center gas repair project, is getting started up again. We had an item taken to council at the first March council meeting. Currently, we're just coordinating with the gas company to get a meter upgrade and then make the final connections to the meter and make sure that the connections within the building are working properly. The anticipated completion for that project is March 2026. CIP 699, which is a parking structure improvements project, is also slated to be completed right about the end of this month, possibly into the first couple of days of April. As you can see, the picture on the bottom is actually from earlier this morning. The contractor is in the process of coating the remaining decks. This is the top deck. There's about 3 coats that go on, a base coat and then 2 top layer coats. These are the coatings that's going to be protecting the concrete that was just repaired. It's a very important portion of the work. And we're looking to have the parking structure opened in April. And then lastly, and actually this is, I don't think, CIP 619, Kelly Courts Improvement, is wrapping up as well. This project's actually slated to be completed in April, not March. That should be a correction. The pending items for Kelly Courts is, again, just the resurfacing and the installation of the new play equipment, the basketball equipment, as well as the tennis courts. Few minor remaining items for that.
Any comments on that slide?
Well, did you want comments now? I was just,
Yeah.
My only
Yeah, jump in either on
Okay.
at least on the slide so we don't have the too old information we're talking about.
okay. I just had a question about 699, the parking structure. Whenever you say it's going to be complete, is it going to be usable?
Yes, completed and opened at the start of April.
Okay.
Correct.
And Kelly Courts, too, will be complete and open in April.
Kelly Courts will be towards the end of April, but
Okay.
that's when we're planning for that. Yes, correct.
Perfect.
And then I just wanted to share an observation of, on the Kelly Courts, I'm sorry, on the gas repairs. I saw in the staff report for that, for council, that there were some unforeseen conditions, I think, with the thickness of the roof, and that were part of the reason you needed to make some changes to the plans.
Correct.
And it doesn't really surprise me that it was hard to find records, maybe, because, I mean, that building's like almost 100 years old. So it just shows that there are risks that things can happen related to documentation. And then it occurred to me that we had something similar happen at the Kelly Courts, where the as-built configuration of the surface underneath was a bit of a surprise. So I'm not trying to disparage anybody or say that all of a sudden we have a problem, but I just think it goes to show the importance of good documentation and records keeping, and that's just the point I want to make there, having seen a pattern of sorts. So thanks for the chance to say that, and please proceed.
Yep.
All right. Moving on, other projects that are currently under construction, as was mentioned earlier, CIP 164, Hermosa Avenue Green Streets project is definitely underway. There are impacts being felt, and we understand that. This is a project that's in coordination with City of Torrance. City of Torrance is actually the lead city to which the contractor is directly contracted with. So it limits the way that we approach the project. Nonetheless, the contractor is within our city. We do have we do have our own public works inspector that is on site throughout the day for this project. And as Director San Clemente stated, if there are any issues as far as impacts and traffic control related impacts, please feel free to reach out to the Public Works Department, and we will address it as best as possible.
So I do have a question, and I don't know that there's a whole lot we can do, but they seem to be done with First Street, done with Linden First and Second, and they're moving on. But there's still material stored on First Street. Is there a reason they're not, like, it seems like they should get an area done and be done with it, have the impact be done for that portion of the neighborhood. And that's definitely not happening. I was just wondering, is there a reason for that? Is there anything we can do about that? Or is it they get to put their stuff where they want to put their stuff?
It's not necessarily they get to put their stuff where they want to put it. We are trying to coordinate it to minimize impacts. We do understand that some of these locations where the installations for the permeable gutters is completed, we do want to make sure that that's done and out of the way. Unfortunately, for this project, the staging for the permeable gutters that's coming in, some of that is not old material, it's newer material that's coming in for other locations. We're trying to coordinate better with the contractor to find better staging areas that are less impactful. So anything that's coming in further, we're working with the project manager within the city as well as with the contractor. Initially, we had this exact same problem on Valley Drive right by Clark. We tried to get that addressed. I think the next step is going to be getting the staging and equipment storage addressed in these areas that's been completed.
Yeah, I mean, I was always taught you keep your material as close to the work as you can, and they're getting further and further away from the material. So,
The issue with that is what we're trying to deal with is if the material's on site somewhere within the city, it's slowing them down somewhat less than if they only have limited amount of material and then they're waiting until they can get it delivered at a later time. So it's a matter of kind of balancing the overall project schedule, but that's definitely noted in terms of staging and better just housekeeping as far as the contractor goes.
okay, thank you.
And then similarly for the Greenwich Village North Undergrounding District project, we did have construction, hard construction with installation of underground conduit and vaults starting last week. That project's moving along as well.
David, I do have a comment. I did go to the opening ceremony because actually I'm part of an undergrounding district that was completed a long time ago, and I just wanted to see how it went with the residents and with the city. And I afterwards, because y'all were there and were able to answer their questions, and then at the reception at the home there on the Strand where you were able to answer questions, I think all that information was really appreciated by all the residents. And I only wish that that would have happened whenever we did our undergrounding district, because I think the city did a great job, and I think the Public Works representatives did too. So, and all the residents were just very pleased that all of y'all were there. So thank you.
Yes, I'll definitely pass that along to the city project manager, Brandon Araujo, and Brianna. They're doing an amazing job. It's a difficult project. There's a lot of different components, and you're dealing with a couple of utility companies, and a lot of times things are just out of our hands, but they're doing a great job trying to make sure the project moves along with as little impact as possible, as well as answering everyone's questions wherever they may arise.
Yes.
And Commissioner Dunbabin, thank you for taking the initiative just to get out and check it out and be our eyes and ears for the commission.
Like I say, I really appreciated the city
All right.
coming out and answering their questions. Thank you.
Okay. Moving along, a few updates for CIP 615, which is the new city art project. As stated in the last meeting, January 13th, Council did award contract to Cumming Group for the owner's rep services. Since then, City has selected a programming architect, which occurred last week. And just this week, we did receive bids for the Sequent Environmental Services portion for this project, which is another critical aspect that will help keep the project moving along. Any questions for CIP 615?
Can we move a little faster on the city art?
Going as fast as we can.
Next project that's in conceptual design planning, CIP 438, which is a stormwater drywall assessment project. Just a couple of quick updates for that. City has selected Geosyntec to provide alternate locations for possible drywall locations. We're also coordinating and teaming up with Redondo Beach to try to secure grant funding opportunities for this project. It is a large project. I think what we have estimated for the cost to complete this project is on the scale of between 4 to 8 million. So we are seeking funds, and we are going to be looking at all available grant funding to ease the financial aspects of the city as far as the CIP goes. In the meantime, we are looking to move forward once alternate locations are selected, bring that to council and moving forward with the project with available stormwater funds so that we could keep this moving. I believe Director San Clemente could provide any other details with this as far as our requirements to comply with the stormwater requirements.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. So Is there a deadline that this needs to be done? Because I thought when we were supposed to do the big dig over here, that there were, timing issues then, and that was 8 years ago or whatever it was.
Thanks, Commissioner Hayes. Yes, there is risk to the city right now, and I think all the cities that are in the area, I think we're all sort of in the same boat where we have these requirements to meet that we need to meet, and most cities are behind. Projects like Green Streets start to chip away very incrementally at some of the requirements, but just a very small amount. We need to do a big project to get closer to what we need to do. And so there is potential for fines if the city doesn't meet these goals. And so we have to keep pressing ahead, but it's also a funding issue. So I think that what we're looking to do with the geosyntech work is we want to further flesh out. There were some prior concepts that were looked at to replace the Greenbelt project that ultimately council voted down and the city decided not to continue to pursue. We have a potential replacement project that would look at a series of dry wells through the city. We want to look at some alternate locations to potentially consolidate some of these, how many we would need, and also further flesh out the cost and what that would potentially look like so that we can submit a grant for funding. And we are going to have to probably make a decision towards the end of the year to just move ahead with possibly a first phase of design, even if we don't get grant funds. And so right now, that's our plan. If we submit for a grant in the summer, I believe we might not actually hear until early the following year. So we may just need to begin, I think that's our intent, to begin regardless of whether we receive outside funding, so that we can show continued commitment towards meeting these goals, even though we wouldn't be able to complete everything.
Thank you.
I'll make a couple comments on this. I could say a lot, but this was also an item on the consent calendar for council recently, so I'm familiar with a lot of what you've reported to us tonight. So one point I would make is I think this project should be emphasized quite a bit with council during the budget cycle and the CIP study session. So I think there's an opportunity there still to sensitize them to that. There are a lot of staff and council has turned over and staff has turned over since the time, as Scott calls it, the big dig, the original Greenbelt infiltration project. So we also need to take the lesson learned from that public outreach and awareness and education is important there to make sure we don't get too far ahead only to find out that there's any public backlash. So I would encourage you to, in that regard as well. Yeah, so that's all I have on that.
Thank you. And then one quick comment, CIP 115 is being combined with CIP 106. CIP 115 is the sidewalk improvement project, and CIP 106 is the annual street improvement project. In previous street improvement projects, there's always curb ramps and sidewalk improvements that we have, so we felt that combining the funding for both of these is an efficient method to move forward with. Some more updates regarding CIP 623, which is the pier structural project. Design, cities provided final comments back for the structural design team. We're expecting final design plans and specs to be received by the city, I believe, next month. And believe, as far as permitting and funding goes, Director San Clemente will have some updates for that.
Yeah, I can jump in. As we're wrapping up the design, as City Engineer Malum indicated, we are simultaneously working on finalizing all the permitting, which has been which is always a very lengthy process with outside agencies. We're done with the Water Board and the Army Corps, but we're still working through Coastal Commission review. They've required additional supplemental studies. We actually had a biologist do a dive assessment on Monday that was completed. We were required to do an environmental evaluation, biological study under and adjacent to the pier. That's in process, and we're trying to work with Coastal Commission to expedite their review so that we can get to the board agenda to get our coastal development permit as soon as possible so that we can get this project out to advertise. What we're trying to hit is start a construction in October or November so that we can work through the less busy months at the pier, knowing that there's always impact, but it's a tricky window that we're trying to hit because it's probably the more quiet season, but then we also have to work against potential storms and more inclement wave action under the pier. But that's why hitting that October is probably pretty critical to move this ahead. We did hear from a funding agency. We had applied to numerous grants. All the grant agencies out there are extremely competitive. We had applied to the LA County Parks and Open Space District. We were not awarded due to high competition in funding for types of projects like these. But we do have money in the budget to move ahead with 623. While we've been doing all this work with the design and the permitting, we've also been working with our team on finalizing the complete assessment report that was done. We did a very comprehensive evaluation. This has been ongoing for over a year. This is a very detailed effort. And embedded in that is going to be a cost-benefit assessment that's going to take a closer look at how this repair fits in for what we're going to need to do in the near and long term for this structure. Right now, we're looking to bring an item to the March 24 meeting, that's next Tuesday, with a more comprehensive update on the project.
How much does a new pier cost? I'm only half kidding. I mean,
Yeah.
we can put Band-Aids on this forever, or at some point we can bite the bullet and.
It's expensive and it's a very long process to complete. We're going to have, that's the type of information I'm looking to share on Tuesday. So a lot more detail to come.
And I got a small question on this. I saw the part about the biological assessment, and I don't know if I'd seen anything about that. And I was wondering, and also where we have this, these various on-call services for engineering firms, sometimes we call it the bench. So how are we getting the biologist expertise? Are we drawing from that bench or from another resource?
That's correct, Chair Graythan. We're able to pull in through our on-call teams where they're able to pull in other disciplines under our on-call contract where necessary. I mean, that's the flexibility that we really need with these contracts because we don't always know what we're going to need. There's more routine services like our general civil design, but often we do get these specialty evaluations where we do need to pull in through these larger on-calls so that we can keep moving without having to spin off another procurement that could slow a project down by months. So the good news is we're able to find a qualified expert, bring him in through the on-call to keep moving because I would say this requirement was not anticipated as it was not a requirement for the prior repair just 2 years ago, or at least not at this level of detail. I understand why they're asking for it, but we have to comply and the city is moving quickly to be able to provide a response.
Yeah. No, that's the answer I had hoped for. I'm glad that we have a bench that's sufficiently broad in its capabilities and especially for a small town like Hermosa Beach where we can't necessarily afford one of everything. So glad to hear that you found someone from that group. Anyone else?
Okay. And to end off, I just wanted to give a quick update for both CIP 106 and CIP 107. I'll start with the selected streets for CIP 106, which is the annual street improvement project. As mentioned earlier, this has been combined with CIP 115. There have been a few changes for these alignments from the last time that this was presented to commission, and some of that had to do with coordination with Caltrans. Some of the locations that were selected previously, Caltrans was going to have some work done, and we had taken those streets off and realigned with different streets going on. So this is the current proposal for CIP 106 for the street improvements.
Are there any segments you'd like to highlight in terms of adds or deletes, or?
I believe there were a number of, there's a few smaller streets on the south side. I believe it was 2nd Street. I don't have the specifics of what was deleted. I do know that there were some changes in coordination with Caltrans.
All right, well, I much appreciate
I can-
being kept updated.
Yeah, I can get that information. As you can see, the biggest chunk, the biggest streets here that would be most impactful are Aviation Boulevard from PCH to Prospect or beyond Prospect. There's also a large portion of Monterey from Pier to where it meets Manhattan. And we're trying to, again, in terms of selecting these streets, most of it comes into play with the current PCI, the pavement condition index of these streets. Whichever ones are the poorest, those are the ones that we try to address soonest. We also do try to coordinate the paving work with any ongoing other CIPs that we have as far as stormwater improvements, sewer work, as far as utility projects with non-city utilities like Cal Water or Edison or the county sanitation district or county stormwater. So those are the different aspects that go into play as far as selecting these streets.
What do the yellow streets, it's not on the key.
I believe the yellow streets, those were the new ones that were added in. I believe those were some of the newer ones that were added in. I believe the yellow ones might, from my recollection of the PCI, the yellow ones are the streets with the lowest PCI, meaning the worst condition streets. And I believe those correspond to the red from our pavement condition index, but I'm not sure why they're highlighted yellow in this particular
Okay, thank you.
depiction. Yeah, but those seem to be the worst streets from pavement condition index.
And if I could just add in too, I think as Saad mentioned earlier, we also are going to combine the sidewalk project in with this. And so we're still refining some of those sidewalk segments, and some of them may overlay, but there are going to be probably a couple other locations in addition to these segments where we're doing some work. I know we are targeting some pedestrian crossing improvements on Ardmore near 25th Street and the northern limits of the city that would be integrated into this. We're looking at putting in potentially 1 or 2 new crossings with the rectangular rapid flashing beacons where we've had some challenges getting pedestrians safely across the street.
So the synergy tends to be just more the timing than the spatial relationship.
Yeah, I think, and similar work efforts, I think where
Yeah.
we can try to get efficiencies with the bidding and contractor selection. There's a lot of similar work. We are typically required to do ramps and sidewalk anytime we do full resurfacing. And so we're able to combine a lot of that together. There are going to be a few sections of sidewalk that are in poor condition that are outside of these segments that won't be getting paving, but just need sidewalk repair. That we're also going to tackle with it. But I think it's a lot more efficient to do it because it's concrete work and striping work that we can get all one contractor to do.
Yeah, great.
And similarly for CIP 107, which is the new annual slurry seal program that we have, that we've starting this year. The major change in this, actually the only change in this from what you saw previously, is the addition of slurry sealing the basketball area on the area adjacent to Clark Field. The plan is to have that slurried and usable to put the basketball courts back in. So that's the only change as far as the slurry seal program.
Okay.
And if I make
Sure.
a quick comment about that. Yes, it is needed over there, the slurry seal. It was kind of interesting, at the city council, they had parents and children come up and complain about how the hoops had been taken down in that area. And so it's great that they're all going to be restored, because apparently there are a lot of parents and children who use the hoops, and it'll be much better to have the road repaired.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Yeah. It'll be a different configuration, but there will be
Yeah.
an place where they can go play hoops, and there'll be lower hoops for the smaller
Yes.
children,
Yes. and
which is
that
a
was-
nice capability to keep.
That was the big thing. And in fact, the meeting, a lot of people thought it was the Kelly Court hoops that were taken down, and so there was some confusion with that. But once again, I think everyone understands.
Thank you, Commissioner Dunbab. And just to add to that, we did go to the Parks and Recreation meeting to provide an update, and I know there were some comments, public comments at the City Council meeting. We are looking to have a potential item on Tuesday's City Council meeting with an update of the plan to potentially bring some safety improvements to that basketball play area. And you're right, it's not Kelly Courts, it's over in the Loop Road. These are old basketball play areas, and so we do have a plan that could potentially include just that small section of slurry seal just under the play area only. Any larger improvements to Loop Road would come at a later time, but we are working to roll out a potential plan to restore at least some of the hoops, not all of them, but more to come Tuesday.
And that concludes my CIP status update. Available for any questions?
Any other projects anyone else wants to? Well, first of all, any other questions for Saad on what he presented? Does anyone want to bring up any other projects that were not presented?
Yeah, the only thing that I would like to bring up is 193, and it's the ped crossings with the pole lights. I just have to say, I'm so glad that we put those in. I think they've been such a great safety feature along the roads that they're on. So that was, I just say, great.
Thank you.
I had one, it's project 113, which is multi-space meters in a couple of the parking lots. I think maybe one's lot D, and I forget the other one. But I noticed that project was promoted from pending to the active category, and I was wondering if there was a particular catalyst that made that happen at this time, or anything you can, just curious.
It's really just a function of staff capacity. So I think as we are trying to work, we're trying to balance the projected schedule that we show each year, and that's often a large function of capacity. And so I think we did have someone freed up to potentially get that started, and we are working on very beginning stages of that design. So we do move things from category to category, but a lot of it is a function of staffing.
Right.
And just really quick to add to that, as far as CIP 113 goes, it is going to be not official phases, but it is going to be incorporated in phases. And the first phase is the implementation of those multimeter at lots A, B, and C to start off with. Those, I believe, have been procured. We are awaiting delivery of those multimeters to replace with what's currently at lots A, B, and C, and then lot D and Pier Ave are to follow in a separate phase. But the first locations will be lots A, B, and C.
And when we actually then go to implement this stuff, is Public Works still pretty involved? The reason I just wanted to acknowledge that when it comes to parking, I don't know if I'm going to get this wrong, the Administrative Services, the organization that Brandon heads up. They seem to take a lot of the leadership on parking, at least as far as studies and overall needs. So I was just sort of acknowledging that there's some collaboration between that arm of Hermosa government and the Public Works Department when it comes to parking lots.
It's definitely a coordinated effort. I mean, even with the first implementation of the multimeters, Public Works is definitely heavily involved. Our CSOs are involved as far as enforcement of it. Parking is involved as far as issuing, parking permits that are related to that, as well as the city manager's office is also supporting with management efforts. So Public Works is involved, but it is a coordinated effort.
Yeah, good point. It's even more than two organizations now that you mention it. So just thought I'd highlight that. Thanks. That's all I have on that. Anybody else? Last call for CIP status report.
Yeah, I have a question. We have projects called annual sewer improvements. It doesn't look like any sewers are getting improved in, I can't tell from here, but 2026 looks pretty sparse as far as actual work happening. So it was my understanding that, the intent was we would do annual sewer improvements, and then the following year we'd do annual street improvements that would include repaving. Maybe not maybe not all the areas where the sewers were, but, you'd follow up with the pavement. But it doesn't seem like we're getting an annual sewer project.
So maybe I'll try to take the question the best I can. I mean, I think the goal is to have something moving at all times. And so I think the challenge is that it's really not realistic that we can do a sewer project every year because the design phase takes a amount of time and the bidding and bringing the contractor and the completion. As you can see, we currently are still finalizing our last annual sewer project because it was a lengthy project and the closeout does take a long time. And so it's still technically on the books. That team that's working on that really can't begin the next project until they're freed up to work with the current project. It's the same team that's working on it before they can begin the design of the next project. Also, while we do try to coordinate sewer with paving, those locations may not always overlay neatly. It's not always that there's a sewer project that precedes every single paving project, but we do have to plan it out. So there's often some mismatches with that, and so we do our best to try to plan these segments where we can. So I think as we free up our current team, as we complete the current sewer project, we'll move into the next. I think in terms of just what we name them, I think we can come up with more clever names, but we like to have a general sidewalk project, a general paving, and a general sewer, and whether they're called annual or something else, we have to have a way to distinguish between the different CIPs, and we want that availability. For example, like with the sidewalk project, we want to have one in the books every year in case there is some urgent need to repair something. And if we don't have separate things that need to be done, we can always merge it in with another project, but it gives us that flexibility to address things as they come up. It could be that we have a more emergency sewer project that comes up, and that annual sewer CIP allows us to tap into those funds to address it with funding dedicated for it. But it's a bit of a balance.
Are there any opportunities to outsource some of the design? I mean, it seems like the sewer projects, the annual sewer, storm drain, street improvements would be prime candidates for outsourcing design.
So we do a lot of outsourcing. So I think, we are a small team. We got about a dozen engineers. We have many contracts. The city can only manage so many contracts responsibly for the public. We have about 20 active projects right now. All this needs to be reviewed and overseen by the same 12 people in our department. And so you get to a maximum number of projects that each project manager can manage. When we bring in a designer, there's a lot of work with negotiating what that scope of work is going to be, and then oversight to ensure that that designer or consultant is doing the work appropriately and they're getting the support they need from the city for information that we can only provide them to continue on. And so there is a lot of oversight when we do bring in consultants that has to happen. Otherwise, we're going to spend too much money and the project's going to get delayed, or we might get a product that doesn't meet what the city wants. And so I think I will say right now, we have a lot of consultants and contractors working for Public Works, but we're managing what we can manage responsibly at one given time. The answer is not always bring in more consultants or more contractors. I think you were talking earlier about how many contractors we have in the city right now. It's also a matter of how much construction can happen at one time, and we're trying to do our best to phase it out. But we do bring in a lot of help where we need it, but we have to do that responsibly.
Thank you.
I'll just share a couple thoughts on that. So one thing about having this so-called annual is hopefully we're able to at least allocate some funds to those, and we do have restricted funds that come in on a regular basis. So at least the annual part is that we get the funding. I know that we recently did a very large paving project. Maybe the thought is sometimes you do fewer but larger projects from time to time. So hopefully that'll be the case with these sewers when we do our next one. Okay. I think that, anything else? All right, I don't think we have anything else on 7C. So now that brings us to item 8, which is public comment. Just in case we have someone online, I'll read the highlights of this. This is a time for members of the public to address Public Works Commission on items within the Commission's jurisdiction. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes per speaker. No action will be taken on matters raised at this time, except the Commission may take action to schedule issues raised in oral communications for future agenda item. Speakers with comments regarding departmental operations are encouraged to submit those directly to the director. Seeing no one in chambers, I will now ask Andrew, do we have any virtual meeting participants who would like to speak?
We have no one participating via Zoom, Chair.
Okay, so seeing no one in chambers or remotely, I will close public comment. That brings us to item 9, commissioner comments. 9A, there's no response because we didn't have any public comment. 9B, brief announcements. These would be announcements related to public works or perhaps city government in general. I appreciate Commissioner Dunbavin's earlier announcement that she had attended the undergrounding. Anybody else? Reports on liaisons or subcommittee roles, activities or meetings attended. I guess that was your item there. None. Brief comments on matters within the subject matter jurisdiction of the commission. We talked about.
Oh, go ahead.
We talked about the CIP review and the joint study session. Commissioner Dunbavin.
Yes, I had a comment. I'm not, and actually I'd like for this to go in the minutes, if you don't mind, please. I cannot attend the May 5th CIP meeting, which I think is very,
Oh,
What?
I just want to make sure you could be heard since you seem to
Oh.
have a prepared
right.
remark there.
No. Because of travel outside of the country. I inquired about participating by Zoom if it was available at my location. I was told that I could participate by Zoom as a member of the public, not as a Hermosa Beach Public Works Commissioner, unless I would be traveling on city, state, or other government business. If Wi-Fi is available, I will try to participate as a member of the public. But my only ending comment would be, is that from now on, whenever our schedule is given to us, if it'd be possible to, somewhere in the schedule, just to say that there is a meeting planned the first part of May for a discussion with the Public Works and Parks and Recs Commission about the CIPs. Because whenever I planned this trip, I was looking at our May 20th meeting and did not even think about another planned meeting on May 5th.
Right. No, thank you, Commissioner Dunbab. And I think, as I noted, I think we want to try something a little bit different this year in the approach and how the CIP is developed. And so I think at the time the schedule was developed at the end of last year, we didn't know that this was going to happen. And I think that's the challenge. That's why we did poll commissioners to see if we would have a quorum if we did do the special meeting. But I think there are a lot of benefits to having it, this different rotation in the schedule. So while I do wish you could join us as well, and I'm sorry that it didn't work out the schedule, I think it's something that we're trying. And so if this is a successful path this year in the process, then I think it will give us a better idea to be able to plan for a potential schedule in next year's calendar, should we continue in this kind of flow of how the meetings go next year.
And I think it's great that it is being done on May 5th. And I think it is, to me, it's a necessary meeting so that early before the CIPs actually come before the City Council for their comments. So I do appreciate that the city government is doing it. I'm just sorry that I can't be there, but thank you.
Let me go ahead and then also ask, are we still going to hold our regular May date open for the time being?
Currently, it's still scheduled to occur. We do have a potential tree removal hearing for that evening. If it turns out that they are not ready to come that evening, we may cancel that meeting or request for cancellation. But right now, it does seem that we may have an agenda item for May 20th.
Okay. And thank you for anticipating a question I was going to have later on is, do we have any potential tree removals coming to us? So thanks for answering that. Okay, I think that we're done with 9D, and so we're done with 9. That brings us to consent calendar. So on consent, we have item 10A, which is the meetings of our January meeting. So if anyone has potential modifications to those minutes, you can pull the item from consent, or I will accept a motion to approve the consent calendar.
I move to approve consent calendar.
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Dunbabin.
Okay, we'll take a vote. Commissioner Dunbabin?
Oh, I was getting ready to vote.
Okay.
Yes.
Commissioner Britton?
Yes.
Commissioner Hayes?
Yes.
Vice Chair Legbold?
Yes.
And Chair Gretton?
Aye.
Consent calendar is approved.
Okay, item 11 is not applicable. We didn't pull anything. Item 12, public hearings, none. Item 13, matters for commission consideration, none. Item 14, future agenda items. I'll look across the dais. Everyone keeping in mind the work plan of the Public Works Department there as well. So I'm not hearing any future agenda items. So that brings us to item 15, which is adjournment. Adjourning at 7:21 p.m. And noting the fact that we are not adjourning to our regular May meeting, we are adjourning to the joint meeting with the Parks and Rec Commission on Tuesday, May 5th at 6 p.m. Thank you and good night, everyone.
Love is a lesson that doesn't end. It knows no conditions, so you better buckle in.